All right, test, test. Can y'all hear me okay? Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, if I could have everybody kind of move toward your seats. I think the preponderance of folks dialed in today are participating over Teams, but I appreciate those of you who were able to be here in person. It's my honor and privilege to introduce our guest speaker today, Mr. IfoPili. So currently the city manager of Las Cruces. He's been in that position since 2020. Prior to that, he was a city manager in Eagle Mountain City, Utah. Did I get that right, sir? All right. So he's going to talk to us about leadership today, and I can't think of anyone better to talk to us. I'm a huge sports fan, um, and also I wear the military cloth. Two two different areas where I would tell you um, leadership is a must. You know, in our military profession, leadership is critically important. In sports, leadership is critically important. Running a city, leadership is critically important, or being the city manager. So I'm excited to hear your perspectives on leadership to the workforce. While I have your attention both on Teams and in the room, a lot of good stuff going on right now with leader development. Obviously, the TeaTalks that we are putting on are targeted towards our civilian workforce. We have responsibility to provide you opportunities for growth and development. That is what this is all about. In the building right across the street right now, NMSU managed to in conjunction with the White Sands Test Center, we we procured some money towards developing our civilian workforce. So there's 25 Wismer employees right now and 5 YPG employees in our workforce that are spending a day, and they had 2.5 weeks of online leadership training that we're investing in our people. The reason we're here today and we're hearing from a leader in our community is to develop our workforce. So it's critically important that we get after this. If you have folks who are not able to dial in and listen in today, I encourage you to continue to spread the word and heighten that awareness of the programs that we've got going on. But sir, uh, very appreciative of your time and coming out here to talk to us. I know you're mic'd up, so I'm going to go ahead and mute this one and step off the stage. But thank you for being here.
Testing. Can you hear me? Okay. Aaron, thank you for the introduction. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you for the invite. Uh, I really like talking about leadership. I think I'm sorry, is there echo? Okay. So as I was thinking about what to share, I think it's best for me to start off from where I come from. And like many of us, our leadership style, our management style is pretty much shaped by our upbringing, by our experiences, career, and so forth. So I was born and raised in American Samoa, in an island island in the South Pacific. And I don't know how many of you know about American Samoa, but uh, we have the highest per capita military servicemen there that come out of American Samoa, and really it's Army. So we have an Army base or an Army Reserve Center there. Uh, as growing up there as a high school, uh, going to high school, the majority of the students are in JRTC, Army JRTC, and so we have a high military respect for our military, that's particularly the Army. In a recent article in a sports magazine, it talked about how if you're born to Samoan parents, you have a 60% chance of making it in the NFL. That's actually higher for military service. If you're born to Samoan parents. And a little later, I'll tell you exactly why I think that is. But I was born and raised in American Samoa. My father ran for governor of American Samoa when I was around 10 or 11 years old. And we had this, I remember having a campaign meeting he had in our house. We had all these people over. After everyone left, it was just me and him in our living room. And he said to me, "Hey son, you know I'm really not going to win this election." And I was devastated because I was bragging to all my friends that I was going to go to the governor's mansion and I was going to be the governor's kid. And I asked him why he's running if he knows he's not going to win. And he said something to me that has affected my whole trajectory of my career, my life, and my perspective on leadership. And he says, "I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this to let you know that it's not okay to stand on the side and watch." And so since that time, I knew that what I needed to do to prepare to come back and help fight the good fight with my father. I wanted to have a football career first, but I ended up majoring in political science. I thought that was the route. My master's degree is in public administration. But I saw my father. Serve in political office, serve his community, his country. And that kind of shaped things for me. I started my career as a city manager in the city of Eagle Mountain. I just got cut from the New England Patriots. I came back to finish off my last semester of my master's program, and I decided to do an internship with the city of Eagle Mountain. 2 months into my internship, the mayor was caught for embezzlement, and the city manager at the time was fired. Everybody else were left that could take that place of city manager or city administrator. And I, as an intern, 26-year-old intern, was appointed to be the acting city administrator. And I was in this little cubicle, could barely fit in this little cubicle, and I was running the city of Las Cruces, city of Eagle Mountain. Few months into that role, I went to the interim mayor at the time, and I told him I need to go back and play football. Plus, I don't know what I'm doing. And we need to go find someone who does. And so we ended up looking for somebody. We pulled somebody out of retirement, got him from California, and last minute, my wife and I decided that it was time for us to hang up the cleats. So when we hired the new city manager, it would be eventually be my boss that I hired, and we decided to stay, and I became the assistant city administrator. And then a few years later, he retired, and that's how I began my career in local government. My whole goal was to go back to Samoa, and I thought I'd help out for a little bit. But 15 years later, I made the decision to go the opposite direction and come to New Mexico. And I'll get into that story in a little bit too. And so I never made it back to my homeland, but it seems like I'm moving further and further away. And so a little bit of background there. My NFL career, I want to share with you these things because it sort of shaping the way I manage today. But I started off with Houston Texans, arguably the worst team in the NFL at that time. Not arguably, they were the worst team at the time. And I ended up my career. I bounced around. I went in as a undrafted free agent, trying to make a team. Ended up bouncing around, and then ended my career with the Super Bowl champs with New England Patriots. And so I was able to see I was able to experience within a short period of time what a losing team looks like and what a winning team looks like. And I've been able to glean some principles from there that I still apply today, and I really believe in. And I do think the New England Patriots' success has a lot to do with Tom Brady, but more so the culture at the time, the culture of winning. And I want to get into that, and I'll come back to the city management in a little bit. But when I went to the Houston Texans, Dom Capers was the coach. Great coach. He just got there, I think, maybe a year before. And as a rookie, you come into the stadium. It was exactly what you would think an NFL team would look like. You have all these Lombardi posters all over. The coach was a great speaker. He sounded like Lombardi. He would great motivator. My first meeting with the head coach, he gathered all of us together, and he gave a 20-minute speech on the little things, taking care of the little things. And he came down on us for how dirty our bathrooms were, our locker rooms were. And he would say that, you know, if we take care of these things, it'll translate onto the field. And he just gave this whole lecture about that. He would make sure that we always walked around with a pencil and a notepad, that we treated football like a real job and like students of the game. So we always had this notepad and this pencil. And he would come in and he checked to see in each of our meetings. He also, in the weight room, we would go and anytime we'd check into the weight room, there was always somebody assigned to each one of us. And our lifts would be timed. Even each rep would be timed. And it was so regimented. And as a rookie, I thought this is what the NFL should be like. It should be regimented. It should be, you know, discipline. We should have discipline. Fast forward to the New England Patriots. My first memory of a meeting with my head coach there, Bill Belichick, was a 5-minute meeting where he called an emergency meeting for all of us, had us all come into this room. At the time, American Idol was using our stadium. And it was a 5-minute meeting. He said, gather up, gentlemen. If any of you effing idiots try out for American Idol, you're off this team. Dismissed. Our locker rooms were not clean. It was cleaned by the custodians, but we would throw balls of tape if the coaches came through. Our weight room, there was no roll taken. Music was blasting loud all the time. I remember one of my first practices with the Patriots. As soon as the horn blew and we came to gather, and coach said his final words before practice was done, I remember walking off the field and looking back, and I was the only one walking off the field with the coaches. The players were still practicing. They're still doing their thing. There was a difference in that culture there. Now, as a rookie, and even as a student of government, student of leadership, you would think that the Super Bowl team would be the one I described, right? They would be the description of the Texans and vice versa. And so I thought about that really later on in my career. I would look back at that experience and wonder why. And what is it about these cultures, this winning and losing culture, that I can make some inference on for what I was doing and my career at the time. And there's a couple of things I pulled out. Number one, if you have to take role in your weight room, you're not there yet as an organization. Um, Number two, if you focus on the little things, I think that's a very good principle. But if you focus on the wrong things, you won't get the things that you're trying to accomplish. In other words, if there was a toilet bowl, the Houston Texans would have won that year, right? But if you focus on the toilet bowl and instead of the Super Bowl, you won't win the Super Bowl. You win the toilet bowl. And there's a lot more other things that I can share about that. But those were two things that I pulled out. Keeping your bathrooms clean are very important. But where you focus your energy and focus your time is even more important. So one thing I've applied to in my current careers is I want to make sure our organization. It's the first thing when I get into an organization. I want to make sure that we have a culture where you don't have to take role in the weight room. Now, you do take role, you do check in, time out. But if you can create an organization where you don't have to do that, where people actually come to work and are inspired by what they're doing, that they see what they're doing and how it relates to the end goal, that's when the dynasties are created, right? That's when the dynasties are created in sports and also and how it applies in government as well. The question now then is how do we create that environment? What is it that fosters that environment so that people do the things they do without having to take role? I learned this new Spanish word, and this is now my favorite Spanish word, and it's the theme of our entire year for the city. In fact, we've been having city manager dialogues where the entire staff, all 1,600 employees, we're separating them into 3 different meetings. And in fact, I'll be heading back to our final one today. And we're telling them about my new Spanish word. And that new Spanish word is cariño. In one of my city manager coordination meetings, that's with my 2 assistant city managers, my CAO, my executive assistant, we have a meeting once a week. And in our meeting, we had this heated debate about burgers, what the most what the best burger was in Las Cruces. And I realized the best burger is not in Las Cruces, it's in Philadelphia. But my assistant city manager said, there's this particular place that makes the best burgers. But you have to go to that place at 11 a.m. or between 11 and 12. If you go at 5, you're not going to get the same burger because all the cariño is gone from this burger. And I was like, oh, okay. What's cariño? Is that special sauce? Special? What is cariño? And he told me, no, cariño is like heart. It's love. It's it's putting your effort and she couldn't quite give me an English word for cariño. She could describe it in English, but she couldn't give me an English word. I have a Samoan word that translates directly, and it's fa. But so we started talking about cariño in our meeting, and the first thing that came to mind was my middle schooler's bus driver, Miss Monica, bus 68. And the reason why I know that is because my daughter came home with a coffee mug, a hot chocolate mug with bus 68 written on the side, "Love, Miss Monica," with hot chocolate packets in the mug. and it was during the month of December. And so I started asking her about Miss Monica. I mean, my bus driver used to kick me off the bus all the time. And so I started asking her about Miss Monica. And she says, Miss Monica dresses up every day of the month of October in a different costume, just to make the kids laugh when they come in. She decorates her bus in the month of December. Even when she was absent, her son substituted. And apparently he doesn't have cariño, my daughter says. But when he substituted, he got a text from his mom that said, "Tell them a joke. She wants her kids to be happy before they get to school." To me, that's cariño. Now, nobody's doing anything to force Miss Monica to have cariño. I can't go and make a city manager policy. Everybody in my organization needs to have cariño. But what do we do? What do we do to have everybody have that cariño? Imagine if you have an entire organization that has cariño for the jobs they do, no matter what it is, that they understand that what they're doing is affecting and making impact and outcomes in people's lives. And so that's been the talk. That's been the buzz in the city of Las Cruces amongst my staff. That's in our budget document, cariño. And I think there are a couple of things that we can do to make that happen. I think one, we have to show cariño to our own staff, to each other. I made a promise to all my staff, my last city manager dialogue. I said, you're going to love where you work. If you don't love it now, hang tight, because we're going to make sure it happens. Over time, I thought about how arrogant that might be, because that's not the responsibility or the capability of one individual or one office to be able to instill that. Thank you. And so I think what needs to happen is the whole organization needs to be focusing on making sure that we love where we work, that it's a team effort, that we all look at it as a team, that we all look at and take responsibility for that culture in our organization. But first thing we need to do, those that have the opportunity to lead in any parts of our organization, so you got to make sure that we take care of the people that first and foremost that are under our stewardship, that they need to know that if somebody complains from the outside, you get a complaint from one of the residents, that we don't jump all over them and immediately disregard them as individuals and as public servants. And so first and foremost, as the city manager and my staff, my assistant city managers, we need to make sure that we share that. One thing I made earlier on, I would never pass anybody in the hall without saying hi, without even recognizing anybody, without at least recognizing that they're there. To know that we all are part of the same team. One thing about sports that is a little different in a good way from other organizations is that it doesn't matter when you're on the field, and I say sports, but when talking about football, when you're on the field, it doesn't matter. There is no hierarchy on the field, right? You just have people that play different positions. You just have different roles, right? Quarterback probably makes as much as everyone combined on the team, but he's just another player. When the ball, as a defensive lineman, when the ball crosses the line of scrimmage, into somebody else's gap and starts heading down the field for a touchdown, you don't start pointing whose job was that? Whose responsibility was that? We all go after the ball, right? And so there's no hierarchy on the field. And I think even in our organizations, when there is hierarchy, we have to look at it as just different positions, different roles. We just all have a role to play, and each role is important to the organization. And if we can focus on that, one of the things I knew we had to do when I first came to the city of Las Cruces is our insurance. Our insurance was the staff, we pay 60 or 40%. The city takes care of 60%. Now, coming from Utah, in my previous city, the city took care of 100% of our insurance. And my first order of business was to change that. I think that was probably one of the most impactful things to the organization because it was real money in their pockets. But that was one of my first orders of business, and I wanted to let the staff know that they mattered first and foremost. That my responsibility, although we all are on the same team, we all have the same boss, and that's the residents of the city of Las Cruces. Doesn't matter what position we play, we all have the same boss. But my first and foremost responsibility is them. It's to take care of them because those are the individuals that take care of our bosses. Those are the people that are actually interfacing on a day-to-day basis. And so we have to constantly be looking at things to make our work environment better. Doing things. We have a survey going out, 60-question survey about the well-being of their work environment, their well-being and their work environment and their quality of life and their work environment. They need to know that if they answer these questions, it's going to go somewhere, that we're going to do something about it. And so helping people understand that they are just important, and to me, maybe even more important than the residents. Because in order for the residents to be taken care of, they need to be taken care of first. I think that's one of the main things we do to ensure that there's no that you don't have to take role in the weight room. The other thing is more of how we react to when things go wrong. When people make mistakes, when people slip up, if we react a certain way, that perpetuates a certain culture, right? People should be afforded the opportunity to make mistakes. We're human. But it takes years to build a culture and one conversation to destroy it. One conversation. One time when you lose your temper, one time when you make a snide remark, one time when they feel coerced to destroy entire culture that you've been building up for years. It's actually kind of a daunting thing to think about, but it's true. And so how we react to when people make mistakes has a lot to do with actually a bunch of things. One, nobody's going to be willing to be innovative. Nobody's going to be willing to go out and stick their neck out because they're just afraid of the recourse. People have to feel safe that they can make mistakes. Now, I know in certain parts of our city, and I know especially, in the military, there's certain mistakes you cannot afford to make, right? There are lives that are at stake, and I understand that. Even with law enforcement, even with our fire and EMS, you cannot make mistakes in certain situations. But situations where you can, you should allow it. And you shouldn't just say it, but actually believe it. That mistakes help propel us to betterment in our organization. So when people feel like you care, people feel safe. They feel safe to be able to make mistakes. I get hundreds of papers that come through my desk all the time, and sometimes I'm eating lunch while I'm signing them, I'll admit, because there's just too many things to sign. But the one thing I do look at is anytime somebody's disciplined in my organization, I go through each one of those and I read it very intently to make sure that it's fair, to make sure that discipline is fair and it's consistent. And that's the only time I'll step into things. I'll sort of micromanage per se, because I think that's where it starts, is when people make mistakes. One of the other things I learned from my upbringing in American Samoa, there's this saying that's written on all our government buildings, and the saying is "Ole ala i le pule o le kaukua," and that means the road to leadership is through service. The only Samoa is one of the only cultures in the South Pacific, in Polynesia, where when you become a chief, it's not just by birth. So it's not just your birthright to receive the chief title. It's your birthright is one part, small part of it. The other part of it is how well you've served, how well you've committed to your village, your community. And the villagers, the people in the village have to, in your family as well, they have to sign off on that. They have to attest to the fact that you've served your people. And so when I think about leadership, I think it is, and I think it's similar. What I know of military, you can't just come in and be the general, right? I mean, you have to have shown your service and your capacity, and I think that's something that we really need to instill in our culture, in our organizations, in government. Elected officials can actually come in, and they do. That's part of our democracy. Our representative democracy is that you have lay citizens come in and they're elected. From an administrative side, we have experts in our fields, right? As a city manager, you're really not an expert in anything. What you do is you manage experts. And to be able to allow people to have their expertise, to let them do their jobs, and your responsibility is to have to remove obstacles out of their way and let them do their jobs, respect their service, respect what's brought them there to that position. To me, if we can instill that, I think it's another way for us to foster that cariño environment. The other thing that I've really tried to do, in going back to our team-oriented approach of everybody just playing a different position. One thing I noticed in the organization is that when I first came, a lot of people would look for the third floor. That's what they call it. The third floor is where the city manager's office is. And I decided never to sit at the head of the table when we had meetings with my staff. And somebody asked me, just not too long ago, why don't you ever sit at the head of the table there? And the reason why I decided that is I want this organization to be able to function and to run without looking to the head of the table. And so even the way you place yourself, even the way you position yourself, to allow people an opportunity to take lead, allow people the opportunity to do their thing, right? And then the final thing with fostering cariño is, I think when you do see cariño in the organization, recognize it, identify it, praise for it. And people receive recognition in various different ways. It's not always plaques. Sometimes it's a city manager coming to their office or coming out in the field and talking to them and just saying thank you for doing the things you're doing, recognizing that behavior. And so if we have cariño, we have to believe that it makes our city better too. And so we have to be all in that. We have to know that that's what makes us better. When I came to city of Las Cruces, I came from a city or state. It's a deep red state to a deep blue state. As a city manager, I'm nonpartisan. You're supposed to be non-political. But I went to I came from a city with a very, very deep red state, and in that state, I think it was one of the national papers. I want to say the Tribune, Chicago Tribune. They rated Eagle Mountain City as one of the top 10 most conservative cities in the country. Came to Las Cruces, very different, very in Eagle Mountain, I would say 98% Caucasian. Coming to Las Cruces, majority Hispanic. Very different demographically, very different politically, and the principles are the same. They work the same. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter politically. It doesn't matter. The principles are there. The principles of a winning team applies. It doesn't matter where you are. I know even in Samoa, it's a whole different system, whole different structure. But the principles, to me, principles of leadership are the same. And I know that we can foster that. We can be able to foster that no matter where we are. I came from Eagle Mountain to Las Cruces, not knowing this. And part of my reason for coming was to try and apply these principles to see if it does work the same way. In Eagle Mountain, when I first got there, that mayor, he was charged for embezzlement. I think, I don't remember the outcome, but he resigned. Previous to that, there was a mayor that kidnapped himself. Maybe a story for another time, but yeah, he managed to kidnap himself. So the city was in a tough situation. In fact, we had there was a cartoon in one of the papers that had somebody pointing to a sign. Illegal Mountain was the sign. It was a city that started off with 250 people 27 years ago, and it's 60,000 within 27 years. And I managed through the majority of that growth. The demographics started off with a median household income of about high 40s, low 50s, similar to the city of Las Cruces. Within 10 years, it went to 77,000, and today it's 83,000. And we did that through economic development. Our claim to fame there is we landed Facebook, Google, and Tyson within a 2 to 3 year period. But it took 10 years to develop that city to be able to do that. That was one of the main reasons the city council trusted bringing somebody from Utah, someone who they didn't know I would be nonpartisan. But they trusted me to come because they wanted prosperity for their city. They felt like we can apply these same principles of economic development to the city. There's a 24% poverty rate in the city of Las Cruces. And the first thing they asked me, first thing I asked them when I interviewed all of them individually about what their expectations were for me, just about every one of them said, "I want you to alleviate poverty." And I was like, "Man, Gandhi couldn't even alleviate poverty. What do you want me to do?" The only thing I know how to do is bring prosperity in the ways that we did. I realized, though, that you can't necessarily apply everything the same way. When you come into an organization, you can't come in thinking you know everything. thinking that you know it all. You have to learn. You have to understand the nuances of the organization. And once you do, then you can apply these principles. You can do what you know is successful. So, for example, I realized that I couldn't do the same thing from an economic development standpoint in Eagle Mountain as I did here, in the way that I couldn't just go after big business. I needed to make sure that our workforce is ready for it, and that there isn't gentrification that happens because of not only the median household income increase in Eagle Mountain, but so did the home prices. Entry level home you could buy for less than 100,000, and now it's 400,000. And so, first thing we did with as far as action with my economic development team is we created a department that included a threefold mission, and that's business recruitment and retention, workforce development, and affordable housing. And so we're focusing on these programs that can do these things. We're being cautious in how we approach economic development, not just going after big business just to bring big business in, but businesses that can help elevate. With all that, one of the things I realized I had to do was I had to step back from economic development. I actually have economic development not reporting to me anymore. The economic development department reports to my assistant city manager. And some people can look at that and see that's really counterintuitive to think that. I mean, that's one of the reasons why they brought you here. But going back to letting people do their thing and not having to take role in the weight room, it was necessary. It's that important to me to pull back and let these things happen. Once you set the direction, got to make sure I'm not going over. But I want to conclude with a couple thoughts. There are two sayings, two of my favorite sayings that I think is pretty simple, but profound. And I don't even know who actually said them, to be honest. But the first one is, the world will step aside for those who know where they're going. And the second one is, to do something you've done before, to do something you've never done before, you got to do something you've never done before. And I love those two quotes for many different reasons and different levels. Because I also think one of the most important characteristics of leadership is authenticity. And authenticity is only manifested when you're decisive and vulnerable at the same time. That's the only way that authenticity can be manifested, when you show your vulnerability but are decisive in where you're going and making decisions. If you're decisive and not vulnerable, then you can be perceived as a jerk. That's all you do. You're just decisive, you make decisions. If you're vulnerable and not decisive, then you're an idiot, right? You could be perceived as an idiot. You're just a vulnerable idiot that doesn't know how to make decisions. But when you can find that balance, when you can find the balance in your leadership style of being decisive and vulnerable, your authenticity comes out. People see the real you. They see you in your weaknesses, your strengths, and they're willing to follow. They're inspired by where you want to go. You're able to lead that. And so you got to know where you're going. The organization has to know that you know where you're going. And then also that you're willing to take risks, and you're willing to do things that may not be successful. You're willing to fail at things, and you're willing to allow others to fail. And I think at the end of the day, that would be one of the most important characteristics or principles that help foster cariño in our organization. Appreciate the opportunity to be with you all. Thank you, General. Thank you all for having me.
Sir, before you end, there's a couple of questions online, if you don't mind. So one of the questions online is, when it comes to city planning, how much of environmental impact concerns affect your decisions?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
When it comes to city planning, how much of an environmental impact concerns affect your decisions?
Environmental impact as in the environment, in what way? Just all type of externalities that may occur?
Yes, I believe a general environmental impact is what they meant.
Okay. You know, I think a lot of our time spent in city government is reactionary. I think we are reacting a lot. The goal is to get out of reactionary to be proactive, right? That's the goal. The more that we can be proactive and anticipate and control and be more deterministic in our approach, the better. But unfortunately, we are reacting a lot, and we do have to see what the environment is like. In fact, a lot of our policies are governed or determined by what the environment is. I always say, you know, I agree with, I think it's Thomas Paine, who said government is a necessary evil. The reason why you have big government is because we're reacting. We're reacting to things. We're reacting to bad actors. We're reacting to things that determine that. But it does have a lot to do with our decision making.
Another question from online. What is the best burger in Las Cruces before 11 a.m.?
So I would say Dave's Burger is pretty good. We're still in that discussion right now. We're holding our CMO meetings at different burger spots. The burger my ACM was talking about was actually in Hetch. I actually like a good burger. There's a good burger in Alamogordo, but I would say Dave's Burger.
No more online questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, sir. I personally took a lot of nuggets away from your remarks. Great notes. I appreciate your leadership for Las Cruces. So, one thing that I brag to our workforce about, and whenever I'm out in the community talking, is Las Cruces is our hometown for White Sands Missile Range. You know, every military installation has a hometown. Proud to say that Las Cruces is our hometown. And proud to have you as a city manager representing, and really appreciate your time and the leadership comments that you've shared with us. And again, I know I personally have taken some nuggets away. I encourage folks, take some time today, tonight over dinner, think about those nuggets that he threw out there at us, because they're important. So with that, sir, I'm gonna present you with the certificate of appreciation presented to Mr. IfoPili. Given in recognition for your support to the White Sands Missile Range Leadership Program. We are fortunate to have supporters like you who are willing to give their personal time and efforts to ensure the success of White Sands Missile Range workforce. Your dedication and commitment to excellence set the example for all others to follow, testing the future, changing the world. Thank you, sir. Sure.
Thank you very much, Jenna. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. And I will say we're very proud that you all are here, and we recognize the impact that you have on our community as well. So thank you so much.